Well, welcome back. We're in the middle of creating an EC2 instance, the AMI selection and pricing part 2. There's just too much to talk about when it comes to the pricing to squeeze it in with generating the original AMI. So I'm going to pick up right where I left off in the previous nugget, looking at the pricing, which is a massive concept because this directly impacts the bottom line of using AWS as a solution. So I really want you to understand the three models. I have to say, when I first got into AWS, pricing was one of the things that took me a little while to wrap my mind around. It was one of those concepts that I'm like, okay, I think I got it. No, wait, no, say that again. Now, what was? Hang on. It's you just kind of go through it a couple times and then you're golden. And I would say it starts off pretty simple and gets more complex as you go. So the simplest way and where most people begin with AWS is the on-demand instance pricing. The beauty of this is it is on your terms. I can walk into AWS, bring up the biggest, baddest server that I want for an hour, and turn it off, and I pay a couple bucks. It's kind of like I'm leasing the servers at the rates that we agree to. I can come into AWS, and I would say this is the biggest thing with biggest advantage to you with on-demand pricing. It is a no commit model. I walk in, I walk away, and I'm done. Now, as you might imagine, because of that model, you're going to pay a little bit more for it. Now, most people don't think of it that way. I'm taking you straight to this is EC2 pricing on the AWS website, and you can see as I scroll down, I have the on-demand instances. This is what I'm saying. I can walk in, grab an extra large Linux server or Windows server for an hour, and I pay, for a Windows server, I pay almost $1, to use that extra large instance. Notice first off, the pricing is different because Amazon is including the licensing charges they need to pay to Microsoft to run Windows. So as I go down, I can see, and by the way, the next nugget, I'm going to explain all the different sizes of servers that we have at our disposal and what the difference. Well, what is a quadruple? It's like when you go to In-N-Out Burger, if you have those in your region, they have the single cheeseburger, but you can get the double or most people don't know this, you can get a triple and quadruple. You can actually get a sandwich. I think the biggest one they have on record is a six tuple, or it's essentially 6 patties of beef and 6 slices of cheese, it's just crazy. So what's that have to do with the burgers? Or the servers, I should say. So we'll talk about all that in the next nugget. But you can see that right here, you choose the size of server, and that just dictates exactly what you pay. Now, keep in mind, this is saying per region. This is the East region. I go to Oregon. It looks like prices. Oh, look, in Oregon, the West region, I lost my ability to run cluster compute instances because apparently that data center at this time does not support those things. I dropped down to Northern California. I see that it still doesn't support it, but did anyone catch that with kind of the change in your eyes? You see that? Look at the pricing. The pricing went up. When I went from Oregon to Northern California, it went up. Why? Maybe that data center's in high demand. Just the fact is, being in California, everything's more expensive. Power, cooling, land prices. So maybe that pricing increase is reflective of that. So definitely make sure when you're going in eyes wide open with the region that you're selecting in this list. So again, with on-demand pricing, you come in, you use it, you shut it off, you keep running, it doesn't matter. You have no commitment to AWS, and you are paying the flat rate. Now, we haven't talked about storage pricing. That's going to come later. I'll talk about that when we look at S3. This is just the price to run the server. You are storing your AMI, your data, either in S3, that would be where it was your image was originally stored, or it would be in EBS. Now both of those are a charge. Now if you generated an instance from Amazon, meaning remember I was in there choosing the classic wizard, picking an Amazon instance, and I say, I just want to run this, go. It would be stored in ephemeral storage, which doesn't cost you anything, so there would be no storage costs. So, you can kind of gauge that as we go. We'll talk more about storage later, but that is the on-demand pricing. Okay, let's get a little more complex. Reserved instance pricing. Have you ever purchased a house or a car or something really expensive that you didn't have the cash for, so you financed it through a bank? Well, a lot of banks, I'll say until the recent economic times, would allow you to do something like a no money down. So you could buy that house or that car or whatever expensive item you're looking at, a horse, and pay nothing. But in the end, the drawback of putting no money down is that you end up paying more money for the item when it's said and done, because over time the interest accumulates, and voila, you have a larger end of the road payment than you do at the beginning. It's much better if you're able to say, well, for that, I don't know, a $30,000 car, I want to put, let's just say, $8,000 down as a down payment for that car. And what that will do is, in the end, I'm going to end up paying less, because not only am I getting a better interest rate, because the bank looks at it and says, okay, well, if you put that down, we'll give you a little break on the interest rate, but that $8,000 doesn't accumulate interest for 5 years or whatever the length of my car or house loan is. And that's really the concept behind reserved instance pricing. Amazon wanted to be able to provide you the flexibility of on-demand instances. However, once you've kicked the tires and you're pretty confident that AWS works for your organization, they say, okay, how about you commit a little bit more? As in, why don't you make a down payment on your server on it's currently a 1 or a 3-year term. So you're essentially committing to use that server for 1 year, making a down payment, and what they'll do in return is lower that on-demand instance pricing, the price that you pay, below what the I mean, you're still going to pay per hour, but it's going to be at a less rate than the on-demand instant pricing. Does that make sense? So by the time it's said and done, you may have an initial higher point of entry, but the lower hourly rate ends you up better to where, right here is maybe your return on investment, if you will, than if you just do the flat on-demand pricing. And maybe there's some price cuts and increases there, but you get the point, right? In the end, if you have that 1-year term, you're gonna end up paying less if you do a reserved instance pricing. Now, this is where it gets a little more complex. Let me show you the options that you have, and this is where a lot of people go, whoa, let's pull back on that. The options that you have for reserved instance pricing. Now, first off, I'm just on the website looking at EC2 pricing. You can come down here to this reserved instances location, and the first thing that you'll see is, first off, they can save up to 71% over on-demand rates. Okay, so that's a big deal. They can be currently purchased in 1 or 3-year terms that you're looking at, and then they kind of have a lot of the facts about them. But here's the big thing that adds a lot of confusion. You get to reserve the instance based on 2 factors. 1, how big is the server? 2, what utilization of that server do you expect? Putting those 2 pieces together is really hard, but they are different, so that helps out. So take a look right here. First off, they're showing you some 3 years return on investment percentage savings, or sorry, I just made that up. Reserved instance percentage savings over on-demand comparison. So right here they're saying if you are using your server 20% of the time and you are using a light utilization reserved instance, you're saving over 3 years 36% of what you would as if you would have paid for the on-demand pricing. But look at this. Look at this. If you're using your server all the time, 100%, you will save 69% over on-demand pricing over a 3-year term. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of savings. So this is where I want to put it all together for you. First off, just like the on-demand pricing, we have what data center are we talking about from this dropdown, or what, I keep saying data center, what region of data centers are we talking about here? And then what size server are you looking for? So for instance, if I were looking for a, well, let me see if this works. Look at this. If I were looking for, that's not what I wanted. Hang on. I'm confused by my own tools. If I was looking for an extra large, high memory reserved instance in the Northern California region, and I wanted a 1-year term, I'm going to pay a down payment of $353. I'm buying down my mortgage, or I'm buying down my car, right? And that's going to give me an hourly rate, let me drop back here, of 28.8 cents per hour when it's said and done. Now you can see the 3-year term, a little higher down payment, a little higher investment initially, but by the time it's said and done, we're getting a cheaper hourly rate, which initially you're like, well, what is that? 5 cents an hour or so less? Yeah, but take that over 3 years, that's adding up for you. Okay, so and if you compare this to the on-demand pricing, it's way lower. There's no comparison because they're that much better. So that's the first thing is you get to choose what size server. These are all what size server do you want, and what term of service are you looking for, right? Now, once you make that choice, now you have to choose whether you want light utilization, medium utilization, or heavy utilization reserved instances. Now you can say let's just grab the small. Notice this is a 1-year term, heavy utilization for a small reserved instance, $195 down payment. Okay, so for a medium, $160 down payment. For a light, $69 down payment. So immediately I'm seeing the impact, but I'm also seeing, okay, for the 1-year term for light, higher cost per hour, medium cost per hour, lower cost per hour. Okay, so what you're playing the game with here is how often do you expect this server to be running? Remember, Amazon's model that they're trying to create and doing quite a good job at it is not vertical computing, where you just increase the processor and memory and keep building these giant servers. Instead, they are all about the horizontal computing, to where you bring up additional servers as your demand is needing those additional servers, and then when you're done with them, you turn them off. So what Amazon is saying is, okay, you've taken the horizontal leap. You're going with that design model. If you are planning on reserving an instance that you are thinking would be utilized on a light basis. Okay, so how do you define the light basis? Well, let's scroll back up here. And Amazon is saying the light utilization reserved instances are really, you're looking at, and let me see if I can find it right here, ideal for periodic workloads that only run a couple hours a day, or maybe a few days a week, or very sporadically, like disaster recovery, where you hardly ever need them, but when you need them, you need them. You want to make sure that you have them there. So they're talking about if you're reserving one of these instances, ideally, this is what it's gonna be used for. Now, medium, they're saying, okay, this is the exact same reserve instance that they've offered over the last few years. By the way, light, medium, and heavy is also a new thing. This didn't used to be there. So this is kind of a new tier of pricing that they're giving. So they're saying for a medium, this is for workloads that run most of the time, but have some variability in usage, like web server traffic. Maybe comes up, comes down through the years. Heavy utilization is where you're using them all the time. Like you're pretty much planning that this server is adding up for you. Now, you might look at this and go, well, they didn't give me any hard. I mean, they're kind of like, well, it's kind of like this. That's what I would say. Or man, it's kind of like that. They didn't really give me any hard values to where I go, okay, if I'm using this server 20% of the time, then I'm going light. 20 to 80 is medium. 80 to 100 is heavy. Now, there is a little chart here which does kind of give you a good cost comparison. But the reason they just don't roll it out and say this is what you should pick, like when you sign up, choose this one, is because they've given you all the rates. They've given you the down payment. They've given you the cost per hour. They're saying it's up to you. We want you to do the math. When you think of your server, would it be more cost effective? I mean, just grab an Excel spreadsheet or grab a piece of paper. That's what I would do. $69 down payment. And I would say, okay, this is running all year long. So that's 24 hours a day times 365 days. So that's how many hours I have. Let's multiply that out. Okay, is that advantageous to me? Or would I save more if I paid, again, grab the piece of paper, $160 and rent, 365 times 24 times 0.031. Is that, so you see what I'm saying there? It's very simple to kind of create just a little equation to do the math and say, okay, if this server runs the way I think it will, I'm totally getting a way better deal going with the heavy utilization or whatever mindset you end up going on. So that's what the reserved instance pricing is all about. Again, it's paying down your mortgage and getting a better return by the time it's all said and done. Now the last one, spot instant pricing. And actually, hang on, before we go there, I wanted to show this to you. Let me wipe the screen real quick of all the little notes we've been adding thus far. But I want to show you what it looks like, because it's really it's like putting in a bid, if you will. When you are in the management console, to launch a reserved instance, just clicking EC2 dashboard launch instance, you're in the on-demand world. If you want a reserved instance, you open up this little purchase reserved instance wizard. Initially, when it loads up, it'll show you loading offers. It actually just came right up because I clicked on this just a moment ago. But it says, okay, put your choices together, and this is where you say, well, I want a Windows with SQL Server, I want a medium instance, and I want heavy utilization. I'm going to use this all the time. I'm going to throw it in the availability zone US West 1A, because again, over here we chose what region we're at, so this is what data center. And then tendency is default, quantity 1. Let's go with a 1-year term. So right there, it's like, okay, your purchase is ready to be processed. Your one-time fee is $1,680. Ouch! But then your hourly rate is this, and you pretty much go through and purchase it for that. Now, one of the things I had thought about when I was first understanding this, I thought, well, what if, let's say I purchase a 3-year term, right? What if I buy 3 years? 3 years is a long time in the computing world. They're going to upgrade processors. They're going to upgrade, memory. Things change. Do I automatically get those benefits, when things are upgraded? And the answer is sort of, kind of, maybe, could be, but probably not. So that's explaining why we have this extra large, double extra large, quadruple extra large. Amazon is always adding these additional pricing tiers, but they've got to keep the existing ones for people that have purchased the reserved instances from before. You see what I mean? So as computing power doubles, and now we have, Xeon 96 cores, or something crazy, they're able to come up with these step increases. Now the reason I'm saying will it possibly increase, the possibility is there. And when I talk about how the processing power works and ECUs and things like that in the upcoming nugget, you'll start understanding how I'm saying that it could increase, maybe, but chances are you're buying in on what hardware platform you choose at the time, and that's where you're locked in for that term. Last thing I want to talk about on the reserved instances is that this game of light, medium, heavy instances is nothing to do with technical capabilities. Let me put it this way. If I have a heavy utilized reserved instance, it will in no way run faster, have more processing power, more memory capability, more disk space than it would if I had a light reserved instance. And that's one of the biggest confusion points on this is people look at them and they go, okay, well, I don't get it. So is heavy, like I'm really beating that server up, I'm hitting it hard with my no. There is a gauge for that, but it's not light, medium, heavy. It is the server instance type. It is the micro, small, medium, quadruple, extra large. You remember all those? That dictates how much processor, memory, and storage space and all those pieces that you get. This is how often are you going to run that server. And it's just a billing game. That's why I said sit down with your pen and paper and do the math, because it is going to be, let's say we have a small instance, right? So technically, we have a small instance Linux server. It is if I have a heavy utilized small instance Linux server and a light utilized small instance server, they are technically running exactly the same. They can process the same, they have the same amount of memory. It's not a technical difference, it's a billing difference. As in, I'm getting the best bang for my buck if I am going to run that server 24/7 all the time to purchase a heavy utilized reserved instance. As a matter of fact, if you read this thing, it says if you're willing to commit to always, if we could underline it, always running these instances in exchange for our lowest hourly fee. As in, if you go with a heavy utilized reserved instance, you get no benefit for shutting it off. You're always being charged the billing rate. However, you're going to pay less year over year than if you got that same server instance and ran it 100% of the time, but only purchased a light utilized reserved instance. But look at this, it's the same game. It's a game. If I run a heavy reserved instance, but I shut it down to where it's only running 40% of the time, then good grief, I would have been much better off to purchase a light utilization reserved instance and run it 40% of the time. From a financial perspective, I'm way better off in that. So I just wanted to add that piece at the end to make sure there's no technical confusion. This is not a technical game. This is just how often do you have that server running. So Let's now talk about the spot requests. These are interesting. Matter of fact, you even see these when you launch an instance. So when I come up here and say, I want an instance, I want to select this guy, you can see, do you want it in this availability zone, or do you want to request a spot instance to where, at which point it's saying, there is no availability zone. What a spot instance is like gambling. Seriously, it's like going to Vegas and playing the slots. What you're doing is you're coming to the table and trying to outbid other people for processing power. Here's the idea. Data center. Big place, right? It's always going to be over provisioned in that, you've got all these racks. Well, I should say should always be over provisioned with the amount of physical servers based on what people are requesting. So let's say you've got a bunch of people using on-demand pricing from there. Quite a few have purchased and bought into reserved instance. And I'm talking from Amazon's perspective. They're saying, well, we still have more. We have to have more. It's like a bank, right? You have to have some cash in reserved in case somebody comes and takes a big withdrawal. We have to have more processing power than people are actually using. So let's come up with this model of spot pricing instances. And what you're doing in spot instance pricing is you are bidding on the leftover CPU / memory, essentially leftover instances that Amazon can support, but nobody has really claimed them. Now, what I could do, you could come into this game. Let me bring up my reserved instance. Let me go back to the on-demand pricing. Here we go. Normally it costs almost. Let's go with this one. Just over $1 an hour for a double extra large server. What I could do with spot instance pricing is say, well, I want to bid for 25 cents. I want a double extra large server, and I'm only willing to pay 25 cents per hour for a Windows usage. Now there are some bottom limits. I'm just throwing this out there as an example. So your bid comes in 0.25 for a double extra large. I feel like I'm ordering a hamburger for some reason. My order comes in for a double extra large, 25 cents. If nobody else has outbid me, I get it. Meaning, my instance starts up, it starts processing, life is good. I'm like, woohoo, I've got a double extra large server, and I'm paying 25 cents an hour. That's amazing. We're totally blown away on demand, blown away reserved instance pricing. It's great. And then somebody else comes in and says, well, I'm actually willing to pay 26 cents an hour. Amazon looks, it goes, okay, well, based on the resources left, it looks like we're running out. So you just outbid this guy. Goodbye. Your server shuts down that minute. You're kind of like, woohoo, I got it. Poof, it's gone. Somebody just outbid you. You're at 0.26 cents an hour, and now they're winning the bid. They're getting the spot instance. Their instance is booting up, and so you're kind of playing this little gambling game. Does that make sense? So now I know some of you are like, okay, creepy. Can we have our servers just shut down in the middle of the day? Probably not. So first off, spot instance pricing is not for everybody. This would be useful for somebody that maybe is churning through video. Maybe you've got a ton of video processing that you're doing. Maybe it's a TV production studio where they're processing video into codecs to make available on the website and various broadcast media. And so they're processing all of these shows that they have a deadline to get it done by, but they're kind of flexible. It's kind of like, when we want to pay the lower price, and we'll just churn these out whenever and make them available. Maybe I'll take Netflix. Netflix is maybe processing more movies to make available, and they're kind of like, yeah, we'd like to make these available for our people, but when they'll process is just whenever. Or another example, SETI. Many of you might remember long ago, was it NASA? Had all of these star charts. Search for extraterrestrial intelligence is what it was. And you could install a little client on your computer and process these star charts to try and find aliens. The project is over, as far as I know. They didn't find anything, at least that we know of. But if AWS was around back in the days of SETI, another way they could have approached it is put a bunch of spot instance requests. We're willing to pay a penny for quadruple sextuple extra large servers that are out there. And so that way, if they ever did come available, those things would start banging through star charts for just a penny an hour kind of thing. But when somebody else outbid, it's like, no biggie. We're just looking for aliens. Come on, aliens. You know, you could do those kind of things. You see the idea, but you also have to think from the programming perspective. You have to have systems designed to where if a server is just swept out from underneath you, I mean, it's literally to the minute you're outbid. If the server just cuts off in the middle of what you're doing, you have to have some kind of system in place that's, you know, doing checks and balances so you don't just lose everything that happened. You know, it's saving to a location, and then when it does, you get your bid back and it boots back up for a penny an hour at 2 in the morning. Then it can go pick up where it left off and churn through all that data. So as we wrap up, let me show you what it looks like to handle a spot instance. I'm going to take you back to the EC2 console dashboard, our AWS management console, and I'm going to launch an instance. Now you can just hop over here and go straight to the spot requests, or they do give you the option when you are launching an instance. I say, well, I want a classic, and you know, typically for a spot instance, you would choose your own AMI, your own image that you've created. But I'll just, you know, pick. Let's use Ubuntu server. And I want to run this as a spot instance. It's going to do something. So I can click this spot instance, and now you have the bids. It's saying, if you would like a spot instance of a micro server, the current going rate out there is 9 cents. Or wait, no, that's 9/10 of a penny that's available for bid. Now, you can go below that if you want to. Your instance won't run because somebody else is outbidding you right now, but you can go below it and say whatever price you would want to put in. Now, you can see right here, I'm coming over here to the kind of Amazon's description of spot instances. Amazon has done a great job with their website. Like I wouldn't expect anything, but you can see they actually have a table of spot instances per region updated every 5 minutes. So you can go out there and say, well, what's the current spot rate for Virginia? What's the current spot rate for Oregon? What's the current spot for North California? So you can go through each region and find out what the current spot prices are, again, based on the last 5 minutes. So what you can do is come in here, choose your bid. We'll say I want a high memory quadruple extra large monster server, and I want to put that in for 0.01 cents an hour. You know, let's just go crazy. Now you can have it even launch a group. This is where you would previously have defined by name a group of servers that you would want to launch all at the same time. Now, you got to be careful with this. If you create a group of 5 servers and put in a lower rate, you've got to have the spot pricing really has to drop down to that level in order to satisfy that request. So you're kind of hedging your bets. You're saying, well, it's not just one. I really want a lot of servers to boot up at this really cheap rate, or whatever the case may be. You see what I mean? The more you put into this, the less chance there is that your request is going to be fulfilled. Same thing here. If you come down into an availability zone and you say, well, I only want it in this one because maybe that's where my other servers are running in there. Now, keep in mind, all of your servers are connected via high-speed fiber and availability zone, but for whatever reason, you say, I want this one and I want this zone group, or again, you can create a group of servers that you can say, I want to make sure all of these servers in this availability zone can launch at the same time in order for this spot instance to be received. Then I define my, but again, I would say for most people, well, again, it depends on your scenario. But the more you put in here, the chance is that your request is not going to be fulfilled. So you say, well, this request is valid from, and you go in and say from this time to this time, and you can put in certain time ranges if that's what you want. And then you have the option for persistent requests. So this is a big one. If you don't check this, then the first time your request is fulfilled, let's say I get my high memory quadruple extra large server for a penny an hour. The very first time your request is fulfilled and you get it, it runs, the machine boots, you're like, woohoo, it's up, and then somebody immediately outbids you. It says, okay, your spot instance has been fulfilled. This request is no longer valid. We've taken care of your request. Putting persistent request on there says, I don't care if my machine boots up and gets shut down and boots up and goes down and boots up and goes down. Just keep this request in there as long as we're between these dates, or you can say anytime. I want a high memory quadruple extra large server anytime if I can get it for a penny an hour. I will do that. Now I will tell you, you'll never get that server, but at the same time, you see the idea of spot instance. What a brilliant idea to handle all of the extra processing and memory that's not currently eaten up by on-demand or reserved. So I know it took a lot of time to talk about pricing, but rightly so. I mean, most people when they come in, they see the reserved and they get in it, they're like, ah, that's complex, and they put it off. But I mean, you can really see how this can absolutely impact what you're paying for the solution. I mean, when you're talking 60% savings kind of thing, wow, with those reserved instances, it's definitely something valuable to know. So we have seen the three different pricing models: the on-demand pricing, which great, no commitment, but some of the highest pricing available. The reserved instances where you pay down your mortgage, if you will, you pay an upfront cost but get a cheaper hourly rate that always beats the on-demand pricing, unless you do something really crazy like the heavily used instances and you never use it or something like that. So you're always going to come out winning if you do the reserve, but you are making a 1 or 3 year commitment to that model, to that server that you are building on there. And then the final one was the spot pricing. You're playing at the table, the craps table, with all the other players at the table. Everybody's putting in their bid. The highest one wins to get the computing processing power that's left over for the instances. I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.